And so the answer is lack of ownership. I mean, lack of ownership, what does this mean? It means that there was a lack of trust in actually turning it over to them. They did not trust that if they did it and the results were negative, they thought it would kind of complicate things. It would raise the transaction cost in the aid game, and that is not something they wanted to do. So what is the solution? The solution is to focus on the 100% of the public expenditures. That is where, it seems to me, developing countries should be focusing on. That's where the real demand is, and we must move, as again was mentioned by other speakers, including Marco, we should move from aid evaluation to development evaluation. If we move to development evaluation and focus on that, and gear what needs to be done to develop an evaluation, not aid evaluation, because aid evaluation can carry on. Focus, therefore, on development evaluation. But again, donors have to help. It will not happen overnight. Now, so what is to be done then? We have had democratization in developing countries. So in terms of the enabling environment, things are better than they used to be 10, 15 years ago. And evaluation flourishes when you have checks and balances, when one part of the government checks the other part of government, when the civil society is vibrant, and so forth and so on. So I would say, in terms of what is to be done, one, move from aid evaluation to development evaluation. Second, focus in terms of the country strategies a bit more on including evaluation in governance. There are a lot of public sector management aid operations. I fought very hard at the World Bank to include evaluation in those operations. I was not successful. Public sector management operations are quite numerous, and governance is number one in the donor agenda. And yet, when it comes to funding evaluation in terms of specific public sector management operation, I have not seen many of those things. This should be done. So evaluators in agencies have got to convince their operational colleagues that evaluation matters to good governance, and including this into projects. Thirdly, it seems to me what is quite obvious is that the PRSP guidelines should include evaluation. As far as I understand it, they don't. What they do include is data gathering and monitoring. Now, just as a digression, Marco, if I may, your matrix is very useful because it has demand and supply, your 4 boxes. What happens when you have low demand for evaluation and high supply? This is when monitoring takes over evaluation in that box. And monitoring masquerades as evaluation. That's better than nothing. But let's be clear that this is not evaluation, this is monitoring. And monitoring, it's controlled by the people who do the programs. And they are capturing evaluators by saying, well, help us do a monitoring system. Yes, we can help them, but that's not evaluation, okay? So let's be clear that we should be focusing on not only on the M of M and E, but M and E, okay? So therefore, PRSP guidelines should obviously include evaluation. They don't today. So that's the third thing. The fourth thing is that, let me go back in history. In the World Bank general loan agreements have a condition which says the country, talk about country-led evaluation, the first Director General evaluation at the World Bank had the vision that one day everything would be country-led. So he put in the general conditions, and this was accepted, that the responsibility for the completion report should be the country. Very few countries have done it, and as a result, the World Bank has been doing it on its own. Now, why? Then the question is, why didn't they do it? Why? Because the projects did not include the money to do it and turn it over to the country. That's as simple as that. Had they put it in there, it would have been done. So while it is in the loan agreement, in the loan conditions, in fact, there is some hypocrisy here because it is not followed through in behavior in terms of how you construct the projects. So, look, as I say, it is not rocket science also to figure out what to do. So finally, so build in independent and well-funded components of monitoring and evaluation into projects funded by donors. And that does not mean that donors will not report to the taxpayers. It simply means that they really believe that country-led evaluation, they really believe that the Paris Declaration applies to evaluation. It really means that Paris Declaration is going to be implemented. If they don't do that, then they are not serious. And it seems to me their feet should be held to the fire. But finally, there is a big need of strategy in terms of evaluation capacity development to go through the civil society and parliaments. I think a lot of effort has been, because in many evaluators from the north in particular, the model is GAO, which by the way no longer has a decent evaluation function, but we have the notion that evaluation is mostly done by governments, and I think that's of course very important, but the one way to induce government to do it, it seems to me, is to build up the evaluation capacity in parliaments and evaluation capacity in the civil society. And that in itself will be probably a better strategy to improve evaluation in government than going straight to government and trying to ask them to do it. So at least that's one way of diversifying the approach. I think, again, this was mentioned by other speakers. So in the end, the paradox is really not a paradox. It is really a fact there is a gap between the rhetoric and the reality on the donor side. And in terms of developing countries, the issue really has to do with the so-called enabling environment, which really means the long twilight struggle to get liberal democracy and evaluation as part of it into the developing world. Thank you.